Hi guys, Ben from BensGameTime here. You know, the Mario universe has changed a lot over the years, but especially between the arcades and the home console. Mario originally wasn't fighting Bowser, saving Princess Peach, or residing in the Mushroom Kingdom. Hell, he wasn't even a plumber originally. Instead, he was a carpenter that went by the name of Jumpman, who battled against Donkey Kong and was saving his girlfriend Pauline in an unknown setting, likely outside the Mushroom Kingdom. Seriously, the lore of the Mario series is more confusing and inconsistent than the Matrix sequels. Things get retconned all the time, like how Mario is supposedly from the Mushroom Kingdom, but in the TV series and movie he's from Brooklyn, which kinda lines up with how the arcade games had no real setting, with Super Mario Bros. As the first appearance of the Mushroom Kingdom, but there's nothing in the games that supports this. Then throw in how Donkey Kong has an inconsistent role between hero, villain, and side character, and Pauline just disappears for a while and then comes back with a different style. And is she still dating Mario, or did they break up? None of it adds up. But the Mario series isn't really meant to have a consistent lore. It's meant to have each game stand on its own as to not confuse new players. That being said, it's interesting that the classic Mario and Donkey Kong rivalry evaporated after Donkey Kong Jr. Donkey Kong 3 just had some guy named Stanley as the main character, but after that, Mario and Donkey Kong went their separate ways. However, this rivalry was finally revived in 2004 with the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games.
Released near the end of the Game Boy Advance's life, Mario vs. Donkey Kong set out to revive the classic arcade rivalry. This actually wasn't the first time Nintendo tried to revive this rivalry either, as in 1994 a game simply called Donkey Kong was released for the Game Boy. This was a new spin on Donkey Kong, as instead of just scaling up a construction project, Mario now had to complete levels of puzzle platforming challenges, reaching an exit at the end. The game combined elements from the original Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Super Mario Bros. 2, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong uses a very similar style.
Mario vs. Donkey Kong isn't necessarily a direct sequel to Donkey Kong 94, it's more like an indirect follow-up. It seems like Donkey Kong 94 wasn't the reboot of this rivalry that Nintendo wanted, but Mario vs. Donkey Kong was, as that game got a couple of sequels over the years. So, let's take a look at the first Mario vs. Donkey Kong game to see what it did that warranted Nintendo's attention and the sequels that would follow.
The story of Mario vs. Donkey Kong is put simply bizarre. Donkey Kong is chilling at home, watching TV, when he sees an ad for a new Mini Mario toy. Wanting one, he goes to the store to buy one, but they're sold out, so the only reasonable thing for him to do is go across the street to Mario's toy factory and steal every Mini Mario there. Mario catches him, and now the chase is on to retrieve the stolen Mini Marios. A couple of things with this. 1. Why does Donkey Kong even want the Mini Mario? Yeah, it's a cute toy and all, but it doesn't really match with any motivation Donkey Kong has had before. Usually Donkey Kong is all about stealing women or protecting his banana hoard, not collecting toys of his old rival. 2nd, Mario owns a fucking toy company. Like, who knew he was a businessman? I always just assumed he lived off of the coins he found during his adventures, or got paid directly from the Mushroom Kingdom. Maybe this is a side hustle or something. Gotta fund all those parties and kart races somehow. The gameplay of Mario vs. Donkey Kong is straightforward and easy to learn. The game is a mix of platforming, picking up and throwing enemies or objects a la Mario 2, and puzzle solving. Mario has a few different moves available. He's got a basic jump, a side jump, and can do a handstand that defends him from falling objects, which can then transition into a double and triple jump. In addition, Mario can also climb up and down ropes, and can swing on wires. Each of the jumps get used often enough, but the handstand move as a defensive tool is only used sparingly. For the most part, Mario controls well, but there are times when his jump is either wimpy or delayed. His jump has no problem going horizontally, but vertically it's a bit on the weak side, and if you try to run then jump, the jump is going to be delayed, which can cost you some lives.
Speaking of which, Mario vs. Donkey Kong is one of the more challenging Mario games. You see, this game tries to emulate the feel of the Donkey Kong arcade games, minus the Donkey Kong arcade games.
Mario vs. Donkey Kong consists of 6 worlds, each with 6 levels, 1 Mini Mario level, and a boss fight against Donkey Kong. Each of the 6 main levels are split into 2 segments, one for getting a key to open a door, and one for saving a Mini Mario. In the key segments, you need to reach the key and then carry it back to the door. You can throw the key, which is needed for some puzzles, and it will stay where you left it for a few seconds. As for the Mini Mario segment, you need to just reach the Mini Mario capsule and pick it up, which leads to a cool effect where Mario throws it at the screen to break it open. These levels are simple in design, and that's honestly not a good thing. You see, the thing about the puzzles in this game is that they barely qualify as puzzles. Typically, all the puzzles involve are colored switches to activate blocks, floors, and ladders, conveyor belts that can switch direction, and blocks that need bombs to break. The puzzles just evolve into hitting the switches in the right order, or use the conveyor belts to move things around the level, or use bombs to open up the path to the exit. The puzzles are just straightforward, easy, and unsatisfying. You don't get the aha moment with the puzzles like you would in other puzzle games. As for the platforming, it's okay, but it still leaves more to be desired. As I said earlier, Mario's jumps are fine for horizontal distance, but vertically are weak, and if you run then jump, your jump is delayed. Besides this, the game operates on a one-hit death system, with the only exception being when you're carrying something. You are going to die a lot in this game, whether that be because of the stiff platforming or the enemies. Most of the enemies aren't too tough to handle, you can just throw them at each other to defeat them, or use hammers when they are available, but then you've got the piranha plants and birds. Piranha plants will spit fireballs in a straight line, and the birds will fly back and forth, gradually getting closer to the ground, and will occasionally drop eggs. These guys are only really a problem in the later levels, and most of your lives will be lost because of the platforming. Oh, and there's fall damage in this game, so watch out for that as well. You've really got to be slow and methodical with your platforming, or you're gonna lose a bunch of lives. Also in each level are 3 presents to collect. The presents are generally out of the way and require some more platforming finesse to get to, but they are entirely worth the effort. If you collect all 3 presents in a level, you get to play one of 2 minigames for more lives. The minigames are not great. One is just stop an arrow to get a prize, and the other is swap presents to prevent them from getting smashed by Donkey Kong, but you're gonna want to get as many lives as possible. The Mini Mario levels are a bit more interesting. In these levels, you escort the 6 Mini Marios you saved to a toy chest, with the presents replaced by the letters of toy. The Mini Marios also die in one hit, and they're a bit difficult to protect at times, however you want to make a point of saving all of them. Each Mini Mario you save corresponds to a hit you can take in the upcoming boss fight against Donkey Kong.
Now you'd think that the boss fights against Donkey Kong, the namesake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, would be the best part of the game. But sadly, they're actually one of the weakest parts.
Each boss fight is simply just hit Donkey Kong 4 times with whatever he tries to throw at you. This can either be trash cans activated by colored switches, barrels, Shy Guys activated by colored switches, fruit dropped from vines, bombs, or bombs again, but instead of throwing them you switch conveyor belts. All these boss fights are all too much of the same thing, with the only good boss fight being the final boss. After completing World 6, Donkey Kong runs out of Mini Marios, and after getting mocked he kidnaps a few toads and enters a construction project. In this fight, it's back to a one-hit death, but it's a lot more interesting. First, you need to save each of the 3 toads, all while dodging and jumping barrels like it's the original arcade game. After that, you need to take a big barrel up to DK and hit him with it, causing him to fall 1 floor, and increase the rate at which he throws barrels. This fight is both challenging and fun, and feels very similar to the arcade game, which is something this game could use more of. After the last hit, Donkey Kong falls from the top of the building, and the credits roll.
The final boss fight is the best part of the game, and is a strong ending to what is otherwise an average game. Or at least it would be, if that was the end of the game.
Yes, in a bold move, finally beating Donkey Kong once and for all and letting the credits roll isn't the end of the game. After falling for who knows how long, Donkey Kong crashes headfirst into a delivery truck full of Mini Marios, and somehow doesn't break his neck in the process. Mario, showing genuine concern, tries to check on DK, but instead he snatches up the new batch of Mini Marios to begin the chase again. Now we enter the Plus Worlds, which are a fair bit different from the rest of the game. These worlds consist of 6 levels and a boss fight, but gone are the Mini Mario levels. Instead, they've been combined with the 6 normal levels to make a new type of level. In the Plus World levels, there's only one segment, which involves escorting one Mini Mario with a key to the exit door. While these levels are shorter, they are much tougher, as now you have to worry about both yourself and the Mini Mario. If the Mini Mario dies, that'll cost you a life, so you need to be even more careful than before. The presents are still present in these levels, and you'll need the extra lives now more than ever. The plus side to this world design is that you'll go into each boss fight with 6 hits no matter what, but these boss fights are somehow worse than before. The boss fights for the Plus Worlds are just the boss fights from the first 6 worlds, just a bit harder with less platforms or less safe ground to stand on. The boss fights are more challenging, sure, but the fact that they're recycled makes them far less interesting. Once again, the final boss is the best part of this section of the game, as DK now fights using a giant mech, which is just amazing and a bit ridiculous. You're telling me that DK had the time, patience, knowledge, and resources to build a mech, but couldn't just wait for the store to get more Mini Marios? This boss is the most challenging the game has to throw at you, as Donkey Kong has a variety of attacks to hit you with, and you need to time your jumps to avoid the shaking ground when he slams one of the mech's fists. After 7 barrels through the dome, DK is defeated for good. He apologizes, and Mario, being the good guy he is, gives him a mini Mario anyway.
The two final boss fights are the best part of the game, and the ending isn't bad either. The Plus worlds are super challenging, but they still don't offer great puzzles, and they are only a bit better than the first 6 worlds. Now, the only other thing to mention in this game are the expert levels. These levels become available after beating the first final boss, and these are basically the 12 hardest levels in the game. These levels are tough, and are also some of the most creative. You unlock these by earning stars from the main game. Stars are earned in each level by getting a high score, which can be quite the difficult task. Not only do you need to collect all the presents in each level and defeat as many enemies as possible, but you also need to maximize on your time bonus, which means going through each level as quickly as possible, which contradicts the typical safer pace the game asks of you. If you really want to test your abilities, then the expert levels are for you. If I were to describe Mario vs. Donkey Kong in one word, it would be underwhelming. Yes, the game is challenging, but that's mostly because the platforming is stiff and needed more polishing. The puzzles are simple, and you don't really get a satisfying feeling from completing them. Hell, you don't even really get that satisfying sigh of relief when you finally beat a particularly hard part of the game. The game is just not satisfying enough. The mini Mario levels and the Plus worlds are cool concepts, but the boss fights suck and are way too repetitive, save for the 2 final boss fights. The game's short too. It only took me 5 hours to beat the game, and that's even after dying a lot. If you're well practiced, you can easily beat this game in no time. However, I think the game's difficulty is the main appeal here. As a kid, I didn't much care for this game's difficulty, but now I can appreciate the challenge. Not many of the newer Mario games are challenging, so having an actually hard Mario game is a breath of fresh air. It could have just been executed better. With all that in mind, I give Mario vs. Donkey Kong 7 mini Marios out of 12.